perhaps those new carve-outs could exist by analogy today. Like if the United States carved out some portion of some state and suspended it from its jurisdiction, wouldn't the principle still apply?
No, Justice Barrett, for two reasons. The first is, again, that there is a closed set.
But why is it closed? The language doesn't say it's closed.
Sure, we know it's closed because Congress's, the very purpose of the Citizenship Clause was to foreclose new exceptions. That's clear from the debates. And I would say that the language describes a closed set as well, because you can't imagine another situation. The government's trying to make us imagine another situation, right? They say, look, what if Congress, in order to do an end run, in order to change the meaning of the 14th Amendment as to unauthorized immigrants' children, Congress can say, we are not going to exercise jurisdiction.
Well, not quite, because it's redefining jurisdiction. It's not quite analogous, right? Because the government's domicile theory is a little bit different than the jus soli theory, right?
Sure, that's right. Yeah. I'm just saying that in the second step of their argument as to undocumented immigrants, where they have to get around the fact that undocumented immigrants, by and large, are domiciled in the United States, they're trying to say, look, we're gonna manipulate the law either to define domicile or to carve out, to say, just wave a magic wand and say these babies are not subject to the jurisdiction of the United States. There's still a missing factor under that original meaning of the 14th Amendment, and that's that there is another sovereign who can exercise jurisdiction over this person, even though they're in the United States. And this gets me back to a question you asked Justice Alito. The difference between an ordinary non-ambassador foreign national and everyone who's subject to one of those jurisdictions is that even if you take the government's argument and say a foreign national is subject to their country of nationality's jurisdiction in the United States, it's actually not true. If I'm a French national in the United States, France cannot come into the United States, arrest me, and try me for a crime under French law. And that's what sets ordinary foreign nationals apart from ambassadors.
Well, no, I mean, I understand. That wasn't quite the hypothetical. I understand that. Right. Let me just ask you. No, that's okay. Let me just ask you one last question sure. About Indians. So I gather what you're saying is that Congress cannot expand the set of, we'll call them exceptions, right? But you're saying it can't contract them either, and that was the Indian example. So what if, again, putting aside Section 1401, what if our relationship with tribal Indians has changed so much that we would say, no, Indians really are fully subject to the jurisdiction of the United States in the way any other, natural-born citizen is? You're saying that that doesn't change the constitutional status of Indian citizenship.
Let me be clear. What I'm saying is that the meaning of the 14th Amendment is we have to go with the original public meaning. And obviously at the very time that the framers were, thinking about the 14th Amendment, at the time of ratification, that relationship between the United States and tribal nations was in flux, right? The government has made various arguments about Congress's authority, but the way the framers thought about it and the way that Wong Kim Ark describes it is that there was a unique constitutional status, unlike any other relationship between sovereigns in all the world, between the United States and the Indian tribes. And that is what gave rise to the pre-existing exclusion of Indian tribal members from U.S. citizenship, and that's what the 14th Amendment captures.
Justice Jackson?
Can't have the requisite allegiance to be subject to the United States for the purpose of the 14th Amendment. That's what I hear the government saying, but I do think that seems to rest on a different understanding of allegiance than what was in the English common law, and that when we understand what the English common law thought about allegiance, you can see that you can have allegiance to two different sovereigns at the same time. This kind of goes back to Justice Alito's questions. I mean, I was thinking about this, and I think there are various sources that say this, that you obviously have permanent allegiance based on being born in whatever country you're from. That's what everybody recognizes. but you also have local allegiance when you are on the soil of this other sovereign. And I was thinking, I, a U.S. citizen, am visiting Japan. And what it means is that, if I steal someone's wallet in Japan, the Japanese authorities can arrest me and prosecute me. It's allegiance, meaning can they control you as a matter of law? I can also rely on them if my wallet is stolen to, under Japanese law, go and prosecute the person who has stolen it. So there's this relationship based on, even though I'm a temporary traveler, I'm just on vacation in Japan, I'm still locally owing allegiance in that sense. Is that the right way to think about it? And if so, doesn't that explain why both temporary residents and undocumented people would have that kind of quote-unquote allegiance just by virtue of being in the United States?
That's absolutely right, Justice Jackson, and that comports with the plain text of the 14th Amendment as it applies to everyone born in the United States, other than those subject to the exceptions that were baked in a closed set. You owe natural allegiance as a U.S. born citizen. If you want to look at the parents of those people, and let's say the parents are foreign nationals but not ambassadors, the parents owe temporary allegiance.
Right, so the baby